going on, guys, and welcome back to TCG Madness. And in today's video we are doing another Star Wars Unlimited deck profile for around $40 or less. And today's deck is my personal favorite. I think this deck right here, this leader actually, is one of the most fun decks that you can currently build, and I think it's actually one of the best decks to come out of the newest set. This is Kylo Ren, Rash and Deadly, and this is as aggro as it gets. If you are an aggro player, this deck screams you. There's also just other ways that you guys can build this deck. You really can't go wrong with this deck. You can do it mono red, you can do it red yellow, you can do ramp Kylo Ren. I mean, there's so many different ways to build this deck. It's one of the most versatile, one of the most fun decks, and arguably I think it's one of the most powerful to come out of the newest set from Star Wars Unlimited Shadows of the Galaxy. So we're going to go ahead and get into all of this, but in just one second, if you guys can do me the really big favor right now, please hit that like button. If you're new, consider hitting that subscribe button. And again, at the very least, at least hit that like button for me. I really would appreciate it if nothing else. Also, comment down below if you guys think I missed any cards. I know in the last deck you guys commented that I missed Queel from the Rey Mono Blue deck, in which you guys were right about. I did miss that card. I did update that deck later on. You guys will always see there'll be links down below in descriptions for the deck. There'll always be links down below in case I update the deck and stuff like that. So I really do appreciate you guys looking out on that one. Much appreciation for that. Was something I missed. And last week we did Rey, so it just seems fitting that this week we're going to do Kylo Ren. This deck I'm really excited to bring you because I think it's one of the most fun decks, and there's also multiple ways to build this deck. I don't think in a sense you can't go wrong building this deck. You know what I mean? Like, it just needs lots of power, some good upgrades, and then you can smack in your opponent in the face and just win by turn 4 and 5. The object of this deck, you guys, is to really just put as much power as you can on the field and smack directly into your opponent in the face. So there's going to be different ways of building this deck. This is the way I built the deck, and this is around $40 or less. If you guys think there's a better alternative out there for under $40 or less, let me know down in the comment section if you guys think I missed some cards, because I guarantee we're going to agree to disagree on certain things. I love that. Love hearing from you guys. So let's go ahead and dive into this deck. So Kylo Ren on the front, pretty much standard ability. He has an action, you tap him, discard a card from your hand, give a unit +2/+0 for the face. Again, it's as aggro as it gets, right? So pretty good stuff there. Then you flip him over. The first thing that you will notice is that it only takes 4 resources to get him on deployed in your field, which is excellent, right? Because that's what we want. We want aggro. We want our opponent to make decisions and make them quick. The only thing that this deck suffers from is you can get out aggroed by this deck. Anything that pretty much controls or out aggroes you is pretty much the weakest point of this deck. However, though, as long as you play your cards right, there's not much your opponent can do for you to stop you from defeating them. I mean, you're just going to have a lot of power on the board. You're going to smack your opponent into the face, and it's a really fun time. I'm just being honest. So he's a 5/4, and he also has this unit gets -1/-0 for each card in your hand. So the object is to have almost no cards in your hand, or at the very least 1 card, but make sure if you have 2 cards, you deploy him, then put an equipment out. That's really how you want to build this deck. You want to make sure you have equipment ready to go, attach it to Kylo Ren, smack your opponent in the face, and do as much damage as you can in 1 turn. Simply depleting your opponent. Like, you can hit your opponent for 20 damage in 1 turn with this deck. It's very easily can be done. Stuttering here, sorry guys, I have a little bit of a stutter problem. I apologize. So let's go ahead and dive into the meat and potatoes of this deck. First up, 3 copies, pretty standard. Death Star Stormtrooper, 3/1 for a 1-drop. Again, just powerful cards. You guys will notice I did not put in Greedo. I thought maybe Greedo should go into this deck, but instead I did something a little bit different. So 3 copies of Benthic 2 tubes, 1-drop, 2/2 on attack. Another friendly red unit gains raid 2. You guys can see there's a lot of cards that actually have that kind of ability. You can see Kylo Ren can also be very good in a mono red deck as well. I thought about doing a mono red deck since we did mono blue. I thought maybe mono red might be a good chance, but I did want to mix it up just a little bit and do red yellow Kylo Ren because I actually find it to be the most fun for me to play with. So I went with that. Another one is 2 copies of Migs Mayfield Triggerman. The argument can be made to put 3 copies of this and maybe decrease 1 from something else. I definitely thought about doing that, but for now I think 2 copies is good. 2-drop, 2/2, and then this is where the best ability comes in. It says, when a player discards a card from their hand, you may deal 2 damage to a unit or base. Use this ability once each round. It synergizes beautifully with the front side of Kylo Ren. Love this card a lot. Also love that it was also played by Bill Burr. Very great comedian. Next up, we have 3 copies of a 2-drop Crafty Smuggler, 2/2 shielded. Again, I like the shielded ability because You are going to put down a lot of cards. There's a lot of equipment in this deck as well, so we're going to be attaching a bunch of things to these cards, and you need something that's going to at least last you a little bit longer. So if your opponent is trying to board wipe you or clear the board before Kylo Ren comes out, having units that have shielded really go really well with it. Also, too, units with ambush. Again, mono red deck would be very good. Raid is another good ability. Raid, shielded, and ambush. All three great abilities that synergize beautifully with this Kylo Ren deck. Again, you guys can do this deck however you want. There's a bunch of ways to really build this deck, and this deck is just so much fun. I mean, there's at least 3-4 different type of decks that you can build with Kylo Ren. He's a very, very good leader. Next up is 2 drops of a Partisan Insurgent for a 1/4, but as long as you control another red unit, this unit gets Raid +2, or Raid 2, excuse me, which gets a +2/+0 when attacking. Great card again, and we love that when attacking ability because you are going to be doing a lot of attacking with this deck. Again, the only problem is when you're defending, you're not going to be doing a lot of damage back, but that's okay. We don't care about that. We don't care as long as we get these units out, as long as we smack our opponent with the face. We don't care what they do with it afterwards. Next up, 3 copies of the 5th Brother Fear Hunter. It's a 3-drop for a 2/4. This unit gets Raid 1, so it gets a +1. And he also has, on attack, you may deal 1 damage to this unit and deal 1 damage to another ground unit. Attaching an equipment to him and then smacking your opponent with face is a great way to play. Plus, if you discard with Kylo Ren and give it a +2 before deploying, also a great way. Really, that's a great synergy piece as well because discarding before you deploying Kylo Ren is also great, but then also gives that unit that +2. And if he has Raid +2 or Raid 1, stuff like that, you can see there's a lot of damage that can be done here. And you can see how damage can easily get stacked. Even the best restored decks are going to have a hard time dealing with this deck. Love it a lot. And this is where you could swap this card out and you could put like a card like Greedo in, but I went with this card for a simple reason. It's Cell Block Guard. It's a 3-drop 3/3, but it has Sentinel. Right before your opponent knows what's coming, by the 4th resource that you're dropping, they know like, okay, Kylo Ren's gonna come out, I have to remove him. This at least gives Kylo Ren some kind of backup and some kind of protection, i.e. a bodyguard, which is perfect for Kylo Ren because you're gonna at least, once you deploy Kylo Ren, your goal is to at least put 1 equipment on him, and hopefully you empty out your hand, then you smack into face with your opponent if your opponent is tapped out and resourced all out. Even better, but that doesn't always happen. Sometimes you deploy Kylo and your opponent's holding 3 resources. Mainly they're going to drop something and attack you with it, or maybe they may deploy their leader. There's one deck that I did find that when I was playing and testing this deck out that really gave me a lot of problems was Sabin Ren decks, where like an aggro Sabin Ren deck can give you a bunch of problems. And this way, having a Sentinel having Sentinel was the one thing that like really turned the tide for me every time when I was testing this deck out. An aggro Sabin Ren deck, a full aggro Sabin Ren deck will really give you a lot of problems because, again, it is red, and red does have a lot of cost-efficient 1-drops, and so does yellow. Also has a lot of cost-efficient 1 or 2 drops, so red and yellow can really get out of hand. If you go up against a counter red and yellow heroism deck, having at least Sentinel to at least protect Kylo Ren for a turn or 2 can really turn a tide of a deck. If you want, you can also put this on your sideboard, and then maybe you can swap this card out with Greedo or have Greedo as your sideboard. Totally understandable as well. You guys can let me know in the comments section. And then we have a 5-drop Clan Challengers. It's a 3/6 with Raid 3, so when it attacks, it's a 6/6, and it has Overwhelm. Putting equipment onto this card as well also works really well. The reason why I put 2 of this in the deck too is because if you lose Kylo Ren, this is your plan B to win right here, is having this card, Raid 3, putting a bunch of equipments, then you'll see the event cards I put in here, putting the event cards like Strike First, boom, right there. That's a good way to win the game too, out of nowhere. So if they get rid of Kylo Ren, there's not a lot of plan Bs we have in this deck. We really are relying on our leader to win us the game. That's going to do it for the ground units. Next up is the space units. We have a 2-drop 3/2 mercenary gunship. Has action for take control of this unit. Any player may use his ability. So be careful on that one. Make sure you use that only in the appropriate times. We also have a Rukai gunship. 2-drop, 2/1. When defeated, deal 1 damage to a unit or base. Again, can get rid of some pesky 1-drops as well, which we like. We also have a Lurking TIE Phantom. 3-drop, 2/2, Raid 2, so it becomes a 4/2 and attacks. This unit can't be captured, damaged, or defeated by any enemy card abilities. Love this card a lot. Great for these space units. You play a lot of space units, I've noticed too with this deck. You're going to play a lot of your ground units, but if you are getting outmaneuvered in the air, playing some of these will really help you turn the tides. And then the last but not least, two copies, excuse me, of a 3-drop 7th Fleet Defender 3/2 shielded. Love it. Again, shielded is a really good ability because that gives us like an extra buffer. Our opponent has to at least attack twice into this or use a removal spell. We're okay with that. So that's going to do it for the space units. That's it for the units in general. Next up we have is the events. We have Shoot First, 1-drop, one of the best yellow event cards, and this is why I went with yellow, because you can do stuff like this. Sneaky ways to really buff up your units and attack immediately. And we don't run a lot of removals. This can act as a removal. It can also act as a game winner. If you're putting a lot of combat pieces on there, then you can slap this on there and give yourself that extra power to swing into your opponent and really hit for a lot of damage. Pretty good. Attack with the unit, it gets +1/+0 for this attack. And it deals combat damage before the defender. If the defender is defeated, it deals no combat damage in return, i.e. first strike like in Magic the Gathering. Pretty good stuff there. Next up, we have Surprise Strike. It's a 2-drop. Attack with the unit, it gets +3/+0 for this attack. Again, buffing up your units, giving yourself as much damage as possible to swing right into your opponent's base for face. Love it. We got 2 copies of that one. 2 copies of Sneak Attack. Play a unit from your hand. It costs 1 less and enters play ready. At the start of the regroup phase, defeat it. Pretty good. This works really good with your Stormtroopers as well, because you can play it. Or for other cards, such as like the 5th Brother Fear, all that kind of stuff. There's some really good cards that you can play with Sneak Attack. This is one card too I would also say to you guys that maybe you can remove from your decks. I didn't use it a lot, but it does work in certain areas. Really, it could be something that you can remove, and maybe you want to buff up Clan Challengers. Maybe you want to buff up the Migs Mayfield. All that perfect candidates if you remove Sneak Attack. Last but not least is the only removal we kind of have in this deck. We do have Open Fire, deal 4 damage to a unit. It's pretty standard removal. Next up is the Hotshot DL44 Blaster for the equipment or the upgrades. Love this card a lot. This is probably one of the very few times that I think Smuggle was done right. I think most cards that have Smuggle aren't really done right, but this one is definitely good. It's a cost you 1, but if you put it into your resource, you can smuggle it out for 4. If you smuggle it out, when played, attack with the attached unit. So immediately you can put this right on a Kylo Ren and smack immediately into your opponent's base for doing a lot of damage. It's a great card, and it also works for pretty much anybody else. If you put it in your resource, smuggle it out, boom, smack immediately. Can be a great way too, like if you're just 2 away from winning. Imagine with Stormtroopers, that's 5 damage out of nowhere for what, 4 or 5 resources? Not bad at all. Next up is another good upgrade. This is the 1-drop Snapshot Reflexes. It gives your unit +1/+1. When played, you may attack with attached unit. Again, anything that immediately makes you attack with your unit is something you're just going to want to play with. I also seen other people use Jetpack. I think Jetpack's also a very good one as well. So if you want to use that, you can. Notice too, for the last one too, the upgrade is Fallen Lightsaber. This is a must-have for this deck. Notice too how none of these are unique units, so you can play these on multiple units at the same time, really buffing up your units and really getting your board out of control. But this one has 3-drop for an upgrade. It gives you +3/+3. If the attached unit is a force unit, it gains on attack, deal 1 damage to each ground unit the defending player controls. Great card as well, and just goes great with Kylo Ren because he is a force unit. I forgot to mention the base too. It's actually, we're using the base is Chopper base 30, but again, you guys can see on your screen here. I didn't think I had to go over it, but usually that's the flow of the video, but I'm just kind of all over the place. I'm also 2 energy drinks into today. I had a long day at work and I got up super early, so that's the deck, and that's me for rambling. So there it is. There's the full breakdown of the deck. You guys can see this deck will run you at $40.34. Again, it's right at that budget. We're 34 cents over. I didn't think that was a big deal. If you guys think that's a big deal, you guys can admonish me in the comments section. So that's the deck in and of itself, right? For $40 or less, or right around the $40 mark, you can get this deck. If you wanted to really break the bank with this deck, here are at least 10 cards that you can add, or excuse me, here's some cards that you can add, 10 copies of total, flip it into this deck, and it will give this deck some much needed firepower. We're going to go ahead over to TCG Player. I'm going to show you exactly what those cards are. The first card that I would absolutely add to the Kylo Ren deck would be 3 copies of Kylo's Tie Silencer. You guys can see it comes in at $29.52, so pretty much $30 a card. So if you add 3 copies, it's going to be $90, but it's a very, very powerful unit. It's a 2-drop with 3/2 that also has action. If this unit was discarded from your hand or decked this phase, play it from your discard pile, paying its cost. This is an excellent combo piece for someone like Miggs Mayfield, because when you discard, you do 2 damage. Then if you discard Kylo's TIE Silencer, you're gonna play it paying its cost as long as you have the as long as you have the resources. Then if you're using it on Kylo Ren's ability, which you will be, you're gonna also give something else +2 +0. Great combo piece for a Kylo Ren deck. This would be a must-have. Unfortunately, it's also $30 a card, so very, really expensive. The next one I would do is 3 copies of Kylo Ren, Killing the Past. He is a 6-drop, 6/7. On attack, give a unit +2 +0 for this phase. If it's a non-unit, give an experience token to it. As long as it's a non-villain unit, give an experience token to it. It goes great with the Ren deck as well, but I would at least add 3 copies of Kylo Ren. Again, this would be a great card if your leader gets destroyed or removed or whatever. This would be your immediate plan B. If not, like I said, we also have the cheaper version, which was the Clan Challengers. Kylo Ren would give you a much better plan B option to win. This card's a 6/7, put a Fallen Lightsaber on it. I mean, you're doing a lot of damage at that point, so your opponent can't keep up with that at that point. Next up, I would do 2 copies of Boba Fett. Again, you guys can see how expensive this card is at $52.47. So 2 copies is going to run you $100. Crazy. But if you want to break the bank and you want to give your deck much needed firepower, I would do 2 copies of Boba Fett. Is a 3-drop, 3/5, powerful card in and of itself. The reason why we're just going with this card is just because you could put Fallen Lightsaber on him and he just becomes very powerful. He also has on attack, if this unit is attacking an exhausted unit that didn't enter play this round, deal 3 damage to the defender. Putting a bunch of upgrades on Boba Fett would also be a great plan C for victory, but a 3-drop Boba Fett, then you go into Kylo Ren, then if you play this Kylo Ren, Killing the Past, how is your opponent keeping up with you with all that damage? They're just not. Great card to put in. It's also very powerful. He's a 3/5. He's got 5 health and 3 power. It's a great target for all your upgrades. Definitely would put at least 2 to 3 copies of that as well. I would probably venture on 2 copies. And last but not least, 2 copies of Force Lightning coming in at $12 a piece. It's a 1-drop, so it's very cost efficient. So you can play this immediately after deploying Kylo Ren. It also has choose a unit. It loses all abilities for this phase. Then, if you control a Force unit, Kylo Ren, and if you add the other Kylo Ren, you have options for your Force units. Pay any number of resources and deal 2 damage to the chosen unit for each resource paid this way. We don't have a lot of ways of removing. We only have 1 real removal spell. This would give you another good removal option, and it's also cost efficient. It's a 1-drop. If you control Kylo Ren, at the very least, you're going to pay 3 resources to do 6 damage. 2 damage for each resource, right? So it can act as removal, or just at the very least, just that initial ability, choose a unit, it loses all abilities for this phase. That right there is good enough too. Maybe there's a shield unit, maybe there's a sentinel, and you're like, man, I don't have a way to deal with the sentinel, but if I just remove the actual phrase sentinel on that, I can just overpass that and swing to my opponent for face. I think 2 copies of this card would be much needed. If you think about it, 3 copies of Kylo, 3 copies of Killing the Past Kylo, that's 6, 2 copies of Boba Fett, 8, and 2 copies of Force Lightning, that's 10. Those 10 cards, if you to take all of that, package it up, spend a lot of money, but put it into this Kylo Ren deck, this Kylo Ren deck would be very, very powerful. That's going to do it for this video. Hope you guys have enjoyed it. Again, if you guys want to test this deck out, you guys can. There will be a link down below in the description box. If you guys want to build a better version, maybe manipulate some cards or something like that, if you guys have a better option, or if you guys think that maybe Kylo Ren with green, Kylo Ren mono red would be better, let me know down in the comment section below. This is a great deck, and again, for around that $40 mark, I really do think this deck can actually compete with some of the most powerful meta decks currently out there, because if they don't remove or they don't have ways to deal with it, by turn 4, you can really win by that turn, and that's crazy. Realistically, it's actually turn 3, right? Because you start off with the 2 resources, next turn you play another one, and the next turn after that, you're already on turn 3 and you're flipping over Kylo Ren. As long as you have the necessary equipment, you can do about 10 to 20 damage in 1 turn. There's really not a lot that your opponent can do to come back from that. It's a fun deck. I love playing with this deck. I will actually be showing you guys some gameplay. I'll be having a video that will come out on Saturday, and I'm going to have a video that comes out on Sunday, because I'm going to do a little bit extra content with this deck, because I really do like this deck so much. Let me know what you guys think down in the comment section. Please hit that like button if for nothing else. Don't forget, hit that subscribe button if you're new. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. See you guys next time.